Alright, so up until now, every time I've said I think these teams will win or these teams will lose, I've got one wrong a week. The last time I got the Colts wrong, and to be honest, I'm not protecting myself here. I'm just saying I did say the Chiefs should win that game, and the Colts, I picked them because they were riding a hot hand, and that hot hand ran out. And it ran out in cold temperatures in Kansas City. Now, people want to blame Andrew Luck in terms of, oh, he's an indoor quarterback, he's a, dome quarterback. When Peyton Manning went outside to play for the Denver Broncos, it took him one season, and then in the next one, he broke every single season passing record in the NFL. So I don't think it really is about dome quarterbacks or not, because he spent his entire career in a dome and then smashed every record you can imagine outside of a dome. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but weather will be a huge difference in this game, potentially. Now, I heard something very interesting from James Harrison. He was talking about his time with the Patriots. Now, I was aware of the fact they practiced outside more regularly, as they should do, because they play outside in the cold. I don't mean they practice outside more regularly. I mean they practice outside in cold temperatures more regularly. But what he said is they only practice outside. They do not practice inside unless there is absolutely no way they can practice outside. No other team in the NFL, I can't say for sure, but you can be pretty sure that no other team in the NFL does that. Considering the fact I've heard from multiple different players in the past week for whatever reason, I think it was Emmanuel Sanders and it was James Harrison saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that prides themselves on being tough and finds, well, the players fine each other if you wear sleeves in a cold weather game, then it was a surprise to James Harrison that the New England Patriots would practice outside all the time. Therefore, clearly not a regular thing with the Steelers, who try and put themselves out there as that tough cold weather team, and they don't even practice outside all the time. So the Patriots are a step above everybody else in that regard. Nobody else will be doing what they do. And when they come out this week against the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't believe it won't be a home game atmosphere for the Chiefs. It doesn't matter how cold it is. Fans are fans, and especially in an AFC Championship game. The chance to see your Chiefs in the Super Bowl again, you're not going to sit down there shivering. You're going to be standing up making noise. But if Tom Brady plays like he did last week, I don't know if it was because they came off of that bye week and Tom Brady's at the age where he needs a bye week to recover to be able to play at his full ability when he's healthy. But Tom Brady was Tom Brady last week. And, late in the season, I did watch him and I saw him in the pocket and I thought, this is kind of a different Brady. But not that his arm talent went away, but that's what everybody says. It's not your arm, it's your legs. And that's where he did look different. In the pocket, basically useless. This game against the Chargers, he was stepping up, he was stepping out, he was doing everything we've seen Tom Brady do the past few years. And they looked like the best team in the NFL last week. It was against the Chargers, an incredibly good team, and they just absolutely dominated them. Every phase of the game, the defense even looked a lot better than it has done all season long. So if that was not just because of the bye week, and that's the tempo the Patriots are going to be rolling at throughout the playoffs, it's their game to win. The Chiefs, however, absolutely stepped up against the Colts. I said it, and I think other people mentioned it. They didn't really win a primetime game all season. They didn't win any of those big games they needed to, but once they actually needed to win a game, they just steamrolled the Colts. The Colts looked like a completely different team, like they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. When I've been saying that everybody in the playoffs deserved to be there this year, they look like a team, like a fish out of water. I don't necessarily buy all of this, oh, speed gets worse in the cold, because everybody's speed gets worse in the cold, and, you're working on the percentage. Like, you can change the settings in Madden. You change the threshold of what the speed is. Tyreek Hill is still going to be slightly faster than another guy because he's cold. It's, the other guy's cold too, so not really a point. But I think potentially the weather could make a big difference. I'll say this, for the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, they did a great job of controlling the weather in the last game. You barely saw that it was snowing. That was a really good job from them. Obviously, they can't control the temperature in the stadium, but they kept that field pretty clear of snow, so you can't expect a snowball probably, but if you get that as well, it comes back down to the fact the Patriots have a lot of experience, not only in the playoffs, in this kind of cold weather game, in adverse conditions. Tom Brady's the best of all time, apparently, in adverse conditions, but it is the Kansas City Chiefs who have been firing all cylinders, and it was a field goal in Foxborough that won the game for the Patriots the last time. Could go to the Chiefs. If I had to bet, and maybe I will, I'd say the Patriots. As Lil Wayne once said, I'm drinking hot tea. But hey, listen, the Saints, what did I call them last week? I said they're the best team in the NFL. And to be honest, I didn't even think about it at the time. Now, I watched pretty much every single Saints game. Maybe I missed one where not much happened because I had Drew Brees on my fantasy game. So I always make sure to watch the entire game of everyone on my fantasy team, which means I ended up watching a whole lot more Denver Broncos games than you usually would do because I managed to pick up Philip Lindsay. But the point is, at the beginning of the season, first 10 games, whatever it was, of course, the Saints were the best team in the NFL. Now, you saw them against the Eagles. The Saints no phase of the Saints won that game. It wasn't the offense, it wasn't the defense. I'll tell you who won that game, it was the crowd. In the first half where the Saints were losing and couldn't do anything, the crowd wasn't really affected. But then they came out in the second half. Well, I think it started with Marshawn Lattimore's interception. The crowd erupted from that point. After that, you saw the Eagles taking the clock down to a few seconds every single time because they weren't able to figure things out. They took that timeout early in the first half, which pretty much potentially cost them the game, although, of course, actually, they had a chance to drive down regardless of time. But I think that extra pressure, maybe, you know, that's why Alshon Jeffrey had slippery hands. But the point is, the Saints' home field advantage, I was going to say home audience. The Saints crowd won that game for them. Without them being electric in the second half onwards, I don't think the Saints would have come back into that one. They absolutely disrupted the Eagles. The Saints get to be at home again, and because of that, there's a good chance they'll win. But I do think the Rams, probably outside of the Patriots, were the most convincing team in the playoffs so far. Absolutely came out and flattened the Cowboys. The Cowboys who we've been talking up all season long. You know, this defense is so much better than you realize. They've got great defensive backs and linebackers and defensive. Apparently not, because the Rams absolutely humiliated that defense, and the offense of the Cowboys didn't get much going either. But again, you see what the Rams defense has to offer. It's obviously the defensive line, but they've also got some great defensive backs. And that against the Saints could really come into play, because that Saints offensive line wasn't good enough against the Eagles. It hasn't been good in the past few weeks, essentially, because of, you know, injury to pretty much every single starter on that offensive line. If they're not healthy, Drew Brees is going to be in a lot of trouble, and he was getting knocked around by the Eagles as well. But calling this game, again, I would lean towards the Saints. Now, I can very easily see us getting two young quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, it being Patrick Mahomes and Jared Goff, and, you know, having probably the most ridiculous Super Bowl in Super Bowl history because of that regular season game they had. Although I think in the Super Bowl we will see a completely different game if those two teams end up facing each other. If it's the Chiefs against the Saints, I will be somewhat happy. Essentially, what I want as a neutral fan, I'm always Team Tom in the sense of seeing a quarterback get 6 rings would be, you know, really quite incredible. If he has as many Super Bowl wins as a franchise does in the Pittsburgh Steelers and they are number 1, that would be ridiculous. But if Drew Brees goes to the Super Bowl, I want Drew Brees to win another Super Bowl to solidify his status as maybe actually the best quarterback of all time. So who knows? That's really, maybe that would solve it. If we get the Patriots and Saints, we can go bam and answer that question, because Tom Brady and Peyton Manning never got to play against each other, but Drew Brees and Peyton Manning got to play against each other, and Drew Brees won that matchup, and he's breaking all of Peyton Manning's career records. If Tom Brady and Drew Brees end up facing up against each other, and Drew Brees wins that game, I don't know how you would really be able to argue, considering Drew Brees and Tom Brady are a single year apart. So you can't say, Tom Brady's at the end of his career. Drew Brees came in a year later than him. So if Drew Brees wins that matchup, I'll put on a hat that says Drew Brees is the greatest of all time, you know, fight me. Because absolutely, that's got absolutely nothing to do with these AFC Championship games. I think weather will probably maybe not even be as big a factor in Kansas City as everyone is saying, because, it will help the defense. It didn't help the Colts, did it? That's what they say. This would actually probably maybe help the Colts more because they're a zone defense and they sit back and they can, you know, react better. No, they didn't. It probably won't help the Patriots that much. They're still away from home in the loudest stadium in sports, so I don't really know how they think just the cold weather will help them, but we know Tom Brady's good in cold weather. The Patriots historically have had some great games in cold weather. I'll say the Patriots, I'll say the Saints. We get the greatest Super Bowl matchup of all time in quarterbacks, but we miss out on the greatest Super Bowl matchup of all time potentially in points scored. Picture on the wall of Richard Sherman playing for the Seahawks. Doesn't play for the Seahawks anymore.